Hello guys, sorry for the shirtlessness and the lack of lighting. I'm in my car again. It's currently 3 a.m. I'm just back from the gym and I just want to talk about um validation pretty much. If I had to put it in one word, I'd say validation. And I think me personally, my journey with this idea of, seeking validation or hiding from it is one it's definitely worth talking about. So me personally, I'd say when I was like really young, I could not care less about what anyone would think of me. I'd get whatever haircut, I'd want to get. I'd watch whatever movies I'd want to watch. I'd be genuinely interested in things. I'd go out and I wouldn't really wash or shower. I wouldn't really take care of my skin. I was just, I was living life, and honestly, I think every kid should be like that. If a kid's, worrying about how people see them between the ages of like, say, I don't know, 7 to 12, maybe, I think that kid's gonna have a rough childhood. But yeah, I think a lot of that period of my life, I was mainly just living and I was enjoying, and it was great. Especially like I'd even go further than 12. I'd say like around the end of lockdown. Yeah, 2022. Yeah, 2022, 2023. I'm talking about then in my life. Then the way my attitude towards validation really started to switch. And without getting too into details, not because, I'm afraid to share that, just because, I might be nervous. Like I'm I'm willing to share a lot about my life on this channel, but it's not really important. But essentially, I think I was in this phase where I was really conscious about how I looked. I was really into that looks maxing sort of, Discord thing. I'd be looking at, like ways to do, ways to just make yourself look better. And this was like way before it was a trend. So like I'm talking literally like 2023, 2022 period. I was really into that. And I was so captivated by this idea of people being attractive and people being, respected by everyone else. And I'd see that in, my day-to-day life. I see that in school. Some people in school would be more respected than others. Some people would be liked more. Some people would be more popular. And I noticed that, part of, being attractive was, getting that as a bonus. And yeah, I think that was mainly what I was focused on in terms of validation. Obviously, I had other things going on in my life, but I think I was really aware and really, I wasn't necessarily like living everything out that I was looking at. Like I wasn't really a looks maxer. Like I wasn't really my life, but I was hyper aware of it. Let's just put it that way. Like I wasn't really acting it out. I wasn't doing anything unnatural, any like bone smashing or anything. Yeah, I wasn't really putting anything into practice. I was just aware of it. And then I think going to like year 11 and year 12, I think I started to look at validation in a much more practical way. I think I was really focused on, you know, it's a bit autistic the way I describe it, but I think I was really like the fact that I was hyper aware that certain behaviors, made people like you. I was actively like looking at those behaviors and seeing the results they yielded. And I noticed that, hang on, this actually works. And I think up until maybe a few months ago, I was really like convinced that everyone who is, treated a certain way by society is they're treated that way because they intended to be when it's positive, when you get this like lukewarm, some people like them, some people don't. I thought that was just, that wasn't successful. I thought when people were successful in society, they were, either the majority of people like them or the majority didn't like them. And that's just however you want to go. I looked at a lot of public figures. I looked at some of my close friends. I looked at many people, and I realized that, well, I thought I realized. Oh, there's nuance. There's so much nuance for so many things in life, and people really don't understand that. And I think that's what I'm trying to get at. And I'll get there, don't worry. But what I mean is that I was just trying my best to implement things I'd see. And I think with that, when you start to be hyper aware of that fact that people, you know, respond in a certain way to certain things, you start like making these bars, right? You start making these sort of goals, mini goals, you know, get this person to laugh, make these people smile, make these people enjoy your company. You start to look for that in life. And when you don't get that, that comes with heaps of disappointment. And when you do get that, it comes with a little bit of happiness, but it's fleeting. And what I've noticed is that, and what you do fails when, say, you know, say you're at a party or something and you want to get a girl because you want people to see that you're, you know, you want people to see that you're a womanizer, or that's probably the wrong word, but you know what I'm getting at. And then you fail, right? And you don't get that, and you feel a bit like a fraud, you know, because you spend this whole time trying to build this persona that you're like this, and then all of a sudden it's like you're being found out. And because you're not really comfortable in what you are, you're not comfortable in that persona you're putting out, you don't feel like it's you. And I think that's a deeper issue, because that's what you sit at home and think about. You don't sit at home and think about the times when that persona was actualized and it happened, and it will happen obviously, but you don't think about that. You might think about it for a little bit, but what you really stay up at night thinking about is, do these people really think I am who I say I am? And that imposter syndrome that follows you throughout everything is difficult and it's draining. And I think that's the nuance I saw, because yes, you have control over how people see you, and yes, you can craft a persona that makes it so people see you in a specific way, in the way you want them to see you. But it's not worth it. To put it simply, it's really not worth it. I think doing what makes you like you is the best way you can go about this validation sort of thing. Validate yourself. Because as a person, I always like to think about, you know, the young version of me, and if they would like who I am. And I think it's best to look at it that way, because your young version will never look at you as a fraud, you know. They'll never look at you as an imposter. They'll always see who you truly are. And I think trying to validate that side of you, other than someone who you don't really know, because most people, you don't really know them. Like, you know, you can be close with them, but you don't know what's going on in their mind, like you know what's going on in your mind, or like you know what would be going on in your mind, you know, younger self's mind. And I think using that you know, meta person as a way to, you know, as a way to guide yourself is just, I think it's the best way to go about this sort of thing. Because there's a few things to understand about people, and one is that they really don't care. Most people, their perception of you is fleeting, and I was aware of this when I was really like hyper aware of validation. I was aware that it's a fleeting thing, that people are more concerned about their own lives, and they don't think about you too much. And I think I was just focused on making that little bit they think about you be positive and be what you want it to be. But I think what you should understand is the fact that it's little means it's not important. It's really not important that someone sees you this way or sees you that way. What should be important is how you see yourself, because you look at yourself every single day without a mirror. You always look at yourself. You're always critiquing and thinking, and in some cases worrying. But I think if you're not prioritizing the version of yourself that you really want to be for yourself, you're going about it the entirely wrong. That's not how you should be doing it. And then second off, you'll never be satisfied with other people's validation, because you just never will be, because the way what you're doing when you're trying to control how someone sees you, you are creating a persona, you are creating a fraud, and that's always going to be a fraud, no matter how much validation you get, no matter how much no matter what happens. Because the way life works, there's always going to be something that makes you doubt yourself. There's always going to be something. Like, I went to an event the other day, and I had this one woman tell me I'm gorgeous, right? I'm not trying to be cocky or anything. She just told me, hey, you look amazing, you look gorgeous. And then I was happy for a few moments, because someone's paid me a compliment. But then by the end of the night, I didn't end up going home with any girl, and I was like, wow, like, maybe I'm not gorgeous. Maybe, this, like, this looks thing isn't for me. And it was weird. It's weird because it's so fleeting, everything that comes, that every small thing that comes and goes, it's all so fleeting, and you have so much control over how your mind thinks. And I know people use that for positive, saying, oh, you can change, you can turn a good situation, you can turn a bad situation into a good situation by changing your perspective, and that's true. But you can also turn a great situation into a horrible situation just by changing your perspective. And I think that that's mainly the point I'm trying to get across, is that validation is fun to have. It's always nice when someone sees the parts of you that you want to be shown. But that should never, ever, ever be the be-all and end-all of anything. The be-all and end-all should always be, are you comfortable with you? Are you happy with who you are? And I think this one feeling I had was, I was in the gym today, and I've always wanted to get like abs. I've always loved like the idea of having abs. Every time I see people with abs, I'm like, oh, I wish I had that. And then I was on TikTok the other day, and I was looking at these people doing ab exercises, and I noticed how like defined their abs were in the stretched position. It looked enviable, and I just really wanted that for myself. That's the way I saw myself, and it wasn't for anyone else mainly, because that was just a personal goal I had in mind. And then now today at the gym, I'm doing the ab crunch, and I'm videoing myself, and I'm shirtless in the gym, and I'm genuinely shirtless, not to show off, not to look cool to anyone. And obviously, it's nice to get a few looks here and there. Someone's looking at me. That's not a bad thing. I'm not avoiding that. What I'm doing is trying to see my own progress, and I'm really happy with it, because I'm finally starting to see those abs being formed, and it makes you feel content. It's enough. You don't need anything more than that. You don't need another person to please, because you've already pleased the most important one, and that's yourself. And this video is going to get really long, and I could do several parts on this. There's another video I posted that I need to do a part 2 on, because I've got some more thoughts on that. But I hope you've enjoyed my little yap session. I hope it's helped you, look at validation in a different way. I obviously don't edit my videos, so you'll have to hear every little noise, every little stutter. But there you go. Thank you.